Chapter 11. "Will you please tell me what's going on?" I screamed. "I'm only 11 years old, and some of this stuff has got me very upset." "There's no need to get excited, Victor," Charlie said. "Now just tell me what's on your mind." "Lizards," I said. "Lizards are on my mind, and pod people, and you've been turning up everywhere." "I know quite a lot about the lizards," Charlie said, "somewhat less about the pod people, as you call them. As to me turning up everywhere, I've always done that. It's you who have taken to turning up lately. We were certain to meet, once you started that." "Well, if you know so much, why aren't you excited, or at least worried?" I asked. I hadn't been bothered too much by the thought of the pod people invading Earth until that moment. "Don't the pod people worry you?" "If you mean the pod people in that old science fiction movie, they don't worry me at all," Charlie said. "Worrying about them is a good way to become one." "I thought they came from outer space," I said. "No, not the pods. It's the other ones who come from outer space," Charlie said. "The other ones? Do you mean the lizards?" I asked. In a way, the lizards are from outer space," Charlie said. "I see you're a little confused about this stuff." "I'm only 11," I said. "Quite so," Charlie said. "I will try my best to explain it to you as well as I understand it myself, but first I suggest we stop at the refreshment stand for a bite of something nutritious. It's almost 2 o'clock, and I expect we're both hungry." There was no way to hurry Charlie. He said he didn't believe that people should talk about serious things while they were eating, so I had to listen to him carry on about the differences among various old violins while he put away 6 hot dogs. I had a hot dog myself and a root beer. Charlie suggested we take a walk around the zoo while we talked. "I gather you've only recently noticed the lizard programs on television," Charlie said. "Well, I don't usually get to stay up late," I said. "They've been on every night so far since I've been staying up." "And you observed that there was nothing about them in the daily TV listings?" "Yes," I said. "Perhaps you even called the TV station to inquire," Charlie went on. "I did that," I said, "and they didn't tell me anything." "Not surprising," Charlie said. "They don't know anything. Now, what's this about the pod people?" "Last night I began to notice that there were these people on television, regular television, before the lizard programs. They aren't regular humans. It's hard to explain. Something about them doesn't make sense. They seem to... Charlie finished the thought for me. "They seem to be going through the motions of being humans without really meaning it or understanding it." "That's it," I said. "They're real, but they're not. It got me thinking about this movie where pods from space come down and replicas of the real people come out and replace everyone. I've seen the movie," Charlie said. "Everyone has. It's an excellent film. But not entirely accurate. You see, the pod people, as you like to call them, are not from another planet. They are ordinary people who have developed in a certain way. It could happen to anyone if they're unlucky." "That's even scarier than being invaded from space," I said. I thought about the stupid people on the talk show, and I was worried that it could happen to me. It had happened to my sister. "What makes people get that way?" I asked. "Nobody seems to know," Charlie said. "There's a lot of it going around. My personal belief is that it comes from eating too much prepackaged food, but that's just a little theory of mine." "It's a serious problem, isn't it?" I asked. "Oh, yes, it's a problem, but it doesn't do to worry about it too much. Somehow, people who get all concerned about podism usually seem to wind up catching it." Charlie's voice was trailing off. He was looking at the rhinoceros. "You know, the white rhino isn't white at all. He's a grayish color like any other rhinoceros," Charlie was saying. He was off again. "The term white is derived from the Afrikaans word wijd or wide, having to do with the wide or square shape of the lip, thus distinguishing the white rhino from the black rhino, which isn't black but gray, and has a pointed or prehensile upper lip." "What about the lizards?" I asked. You just have to ignore it when Charlie gets off the subject. What's that?" Charlie asked. "The lizards," I said. "You said that the lizards can't come from outer space." In a way they do. It might be more proper to say they come from other space." I was having a hard time making any sense out of what Charlie was saying. "Are you explaining or guiding?" I asked. "Explaining? Why?" Charlie asked. "I just wanted to know if I was going to have to pay for any of this," I said. No, as I told you, there's no charge for explanations. However, there is a charge for guiding. I'm a licensed guide," Charlie said. "Does this mean that you're ready to start out?" "Start out? Where to?" I asked. "To find the lizards," Charlie said. "How much will it cost?" I asked. I was pretty sure that the explanations had gone about as far as they were going to go. "$2.50 per day, and you bring your own lunch," Charlie said. "Let's go," I said. Charlie looked at his watch. "It's almost 5 o'clock. Claudia and I have a show to do on the Clark Street bus. I'll meet you in the A.M. at Shane Ferguson's candy store," Charlie said. With that, Charlie took off. He had a kind of sideways style of running. There was nothing to do but go home and wait for the A.M. The zoo was about to close anyway. The McDonaldsville bus was crowded with commuters coming home from work. When I got home there were 2 postcards in the mailbox, one from Mom and Dad and one from Leslie. They were both about the same, having fun, wish you were here, etc., except that Leslie's card also said, "If you ever tell, I'll kill you." I had some time before the news. I thought about what to have for supper. I looked in the freezer. The neat rows of TV dinners in boxes turned me off. I thought about what Charlie had said. I didn't really understand what he meant by prepackaged food, and I couldn't see what that could have to do with pod people. Still, it sort of spoiled my appetite for those TV dinners. I thought about something not prepackaged to eat. I had already done the egg thing. The frying pan was still soaking to get some of the black off it. I didn't feel like cooking again. I was looking around the kitchen thinking about what to have for supper when I noticed the calendar from the Pizza Palace. Every so often my family orders a pizza from the Pizza Palace. They bring it right to the house. The only thing is, nobody in my family likes anchovies. I mean, they hate anchovies. None of them can even stand to look at an anchovy. It makes them sick if they even think there's an anchovy in the same room with them. I love anchovies. I don't know how I found out about them. It sure wasn't at home. Now, there is nothing to prevent ordering a pizza from the Pizza Palace and telling the man you only want anchovies on half the pizza or a quarter of the pizza. We do that with sausage because we all like it except Leslie. Of course, she doesn't hate sausage. I mean, she doesn't want to have a war against sausages. She just doesn't care to have sausage on her pizza. It's perfectly reasonable. She doesn't want sausage. She doesn't have to eat sausage. As I understand it, that's why America is a great country. Nobody has to eat sausage if they don't want to. But anchovies are a different story. Especially Leslie, but Mom and Dad too, freak out about anchovies. They won't let me eat them in their presence. Even if I were to take my special anchovy slices of pizza away and eat them in another room, Leslie would start screaming that she could taste anchovies in her pizza and gagging and carrying on. Therefore, I almost never get to have pizza with anchovies, although I am an American too. I called the Pizza Palace and ordered a pizza with double anchovies. I switched on the TV and sat down to wait for my pizza. I had already checked the icebox. There was plenty of milk. That's another thing they can't stand. I like milk with my anchovy pizza. They won't even let me talk about it. The only time I ever get it is when I'm over at Howard Foster's house. I have rights just like anybody else. The quiz program, the one where the people climb out of the grease pit with a mouthful of money, was just ending. The announcer was telling how they spray the money with Lysol at the beginning of each show so the contestants won't get sick from the germs on the money. The doorbell rang. That didn't take long. I went to the door. There was Charlie. He was carrying a big cardboard pizza box. "Hey, Victor," he said, "is this where you live?" Apparently Charlie delivered pizzas part-time. He handed me the box. "Anchovies. Ugh," he said. "That will be $3. I paid him. "I've got to run. Lots of pizzas to deliver," Charlie said. Are we still meeting at Ferguson's place in the A.M.? "Sure," I said. "See you then. By the way, don't miss the late movie. It's a good one." He was gone. I checked the TV listings. The late movie was Invasion of the Fat Men. It did sound interesting. The bell rang again. It was Charlie. "I almost forgot to tell you. Bring a bathing suit and a big plastic garbage bag and some strong twine." Then he was off again. Bathing suit? Garbage bag? Twine? I didn't understand any of this. I sat down again. The Roger Mudd show had already started. My pizza was cooling on the kitchen table. You can never trust a pizza until it is really good and cold. A pizza that only seems warm to the touch can still give a serious pizza burn. Hot pockets of molten cheese are lurking under the surface. The smart way to eat a pizza is to give it at least 20 minutes to cool off before you put your teeth into it. Some people never learn this. My sister Leslie, for example. There's no point in her eating a pizza because she's always in pain after the first bite. Roger Mudd was talking about the president. He had a cold and had decided to stay indoors. I went to test my pizza. It seemed okay. Roger said they were going to bring back the $2 bill. A poor news day, obviously. Sometimes they really have to stretch to fill up half an hour. Walter is really good at that. I remember when those guys went to the moon, Walter could talk for a half hour about nothing. I really miss him sometimes when he's on vacation. The news ended. I ate my pizza and watched a game show. It was the one where the people get all dressed up in funny costumes and make fools of themselves. The ones in the funniest costumes get to be on the program and get asked easy questions, which half of them miss. I rummaged around in the kitchen for some twine and a garbage bag. I found the things I needed and put them in a paper bag along with some peanut butter sandwiches and put the bag on the table near the front door next to the stack of phony letters to Mom and Dad. I got through another evening of primetime television. I don't know why all the good stuff isn't on until late at night. I finished my model, all but the painting, and cleaned up the newspapers and stuff. I always paint models in the basement because Mom says the smell of paint lingers for days. I think it smells pretty good. I felt sort of bored and restless. I wanted the evening to be over so it would be night. I wanted it to be tomorrow so I could go with Charlie wherever it was we were going. Invasion of the Fat Man was a good movie. In the movie, some scientists noticed thousands of round things like meteorites descending to the Earth, only they descend very slowly. People are watching through telescopes. As the round things get closer, people can see that they are not meteorites. They are fat men in sport coats with checked trousers and two-tone shoes with rubber soles and knitted neckties, and they are floating down to Earth like big round snowflakes. There is a worldwide panic. It takes days for the fat men to float down. When the fat men start alighting on Earth, everyone has been a nervous wreck for days. Each fat man weighs about 600 pounds, and there are millions and millions of them, so there is no point in trying to resist if they are unfriendly. The governments of the various countries just hope they can negotiate with them. All the presidents and kings and so forth are waiting for the leaders of the fat men to contact them. They never do. They just start looking around for places to eat. They especially like hamburger stands and pizzerias and places like that. Most of the fat men from space go to California and New Jersey because they have the most drive-ins. But the fat men are all over the world and still descending. It's like a blizzard of fat men from space. No airplanes can fly because of the ones floating down, and no cars, trains, or buses can go very far without getting snarled up in crowds of fat men strolling along eating Twinkies and chocolate Malomars. The whole planet is covered with pizza crusts and hamburger wrappers. It is almost impossible to walk in the streets of the cities because of all the empty Dixie cups and crowds of fat men. The Earth people can get nothing to eat but fruits and vegetables, lean meats, and rye toast, the only thing the fat men from space don't eat. Civilization as we know it is coming to an end. In the Rocky Mountains, in a secret underground laboratory, scientists bake a huge jelly donut. They use the last 50 million tons of sugar on Earth that the fat men have not taken control of. Then they catapult the jelly donut into outer space beyond Earth's gravitational pull. The fat men notice the jelly donut and take off after it. The last scene is Newark, New Jersey, covered with popsicle sticks and empty cellophane wrappers from devil dogs. The people come out of their houses and watch the last of the fat men floating upward. Then someone says, "Do you suppose they're gone for good?" And someone else says, "We must always be prepared. Never again shall Earth be taken by surprise without an arsenal of jelly donuts." A pretty good movie, I thought, if a little weird. The lizards appeared on schedule, but tonight the reception wasn't very good. There were all those little dots jumping like when there's no signal coming from the station, and you could just make out the lizards behind the dots. The sound wasn't too good either. It was just as well. I really needed to get to sleep at a decent hour if I wanted to be fresh for my adventure in the morning. In the morning, I woke up early enough to take a shower. I hadn't had time for one for the past few days, and I was starting to get sort of grimy. I put on my bathing trunks under my clothes, picked up the bag with the lunch, twine, and so forth, picked up a forgery to mail, and then went to the bus stop. I didn't bother with breakfast because I was planning to have something to eat at Shane Ferguson's candy store.